other hotel that did this massive, super glitzy opening was the Bulgarian Rome.
I want to know a little bit more about Morocco.
Okay, all of us should be thinking about our longevity and our quality of life and our health. Welcome to Off the Cuff. I'm Christine Drynan, and today I'm here with my co-host, who I just adore.
Oh, it's me, Regina Chico, everybody, the co-host that Christine adores. The feeling is mutual.
I mean, it's just mad love that
It's
we
so,
have
yes.
going here.
Yes, you've got a love fest.
I mean, speaking of Love Fest, Mother's Day.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. It's here again.
I mean,
Mother's Day is
gosh,
here again.
like we have to celebrate Mom again. I mean,
Isn't that so funny? I laugh because my birthday is so close to Mother's Day.
Oh,
so it's always my birthday
your
is May 10th. And
Oh
a lot
my
of times
God.
Mother's Day is like right after. So it's always like a fight to the finish. I'm like, what day am I calling? And then what day do we say is Mother's Day? Because I need my own day, everybody.
I actually knew I liked you for a reason. My mom's birthday is May 9th.
That's so okay, that's very funny. Okay, so this is all coming together. Okay, look, the mom thing just came full circle. So your mom's birthday is always near Mother's Day.
Yes.
Which then that's like a double thing. And then my birthday is always so close. Then it's like a fight to the like my day and then Mother's Day. And you try to separate, but we also have to celebrate the moms, of course.
Exactly.
And I feel like, is there a trend now where people are doing mother-daughter trips?
There should always be a
There
trend.
should always be a trend.
First off, but you're right. If you're starting to see, maybe it's our age,
Right.
that we're starting to see like
That's funny. That
more
could be.
of our friends taking their moms
Yes.
on trips.
Yes.
I mean, because, we have a little bit more disposable income
Right,
than we did
right.
maybe in our 20s when our moms were taking us on trips. Or, well, actually, my mom was never taking me on a trip, but other moms were
Right.
taking, their
Yes.
daughters on trips in their 20s. But at this stage in life, it's really lucky when you can have the means to be able to take Mom on a trip.
No, that's so true. And it's such a different trip, like, to do something with your mom as an adult. So, like we were talking about, sometimes it's like, oh, you go a trip by yourself, it's different with a significant other, but then it's also so different with a mom or a parent. So it's like a whole new way to experience a place.
And my mom had me when she was a lot older, or like back then it was like spinster age, like
Right.
at the age of like 36, 37, or
Right,
however
which
my
is-
mom was when she had
right.
me. And by then people were like, oh, you're never getting married, much less having children. But my mom did. She got married and had
She
children.
did it.
And, with all of the things that she's done in her life to set her family up, to set me up,
Right.
to set my brother up,
Yes.
I think that Mom deserves a trip.
I think so too. And nobody knows how to take a trip better than you do. So your mom is very lucky in this instance.
Well, I did take my mom on a trip to Italy.
Oh, I love that.
And I did it for their 50th anniversary.
That's so great.
I will say that Rome and Florence are, I think, some of the easiest places.
And it's so funny you use that word because I feel like that's key.
Yes.
Like a parent trip or a mom trip, I feel like it has to be easy because if a parent feels overwhelmed, then they will add a level of stress.
Yes.
That then now it's like, oh, we're not on vacation anymore because we're also taking care of you. So you needed to pick the kind of a destination that it's like, okay, you're going to be taken care of. I think there's always going to be somebody that probably speaks English. Like you're never going to feel like you're lost or you're overwhelmed. Oh, that's yes. No, I totally agree with you.
It ticks
That's
all the boxes.
Yes.
And what you were saying about it being easy, that is actually the key. And when I took my mom to Italy, we had a driver waiting for us at the gate. Or at the airport. We had like VIP airport service where my mom got off the plane and they had a wheelchair for her. They had the VIP person who whisked her through security and got all the bags. And there was like I have to figure this out by myself.
Right.
Like at this stage in life, my mom should just relax and enjoy the vacation and not feel like she needs to be figuring out logistics. And so what I did was I made them as comfortable as possible in Rome and Florence, and that meant staying at the Hotel Eden,
Right.
which is like one of the nicest hotels.
If that's what it means, that's what it means, everybody. Yes.
It's the oldest hotel in Rome, the first to have electricity, and the first to have an elevator. And now it's part of the Dorchester collection, which means that with the owner being royalty, they put royalty level amenities and construction into the refurbishment of the hotel.
Amazing.
And so my mom actually said, this is the nicest place I've ever stayed.
Wow.
And that was like really special to hear. And we had all of the touring done too. So the other thing I did, like just to have everything managed, is like, my parents are getting older.
Right.
I had a private driver for us. And I had a guide, Asunta, who I continue to send everyone I know to because, you know, Asunta just made my parents feel so special. And so she was so kind to us. They looked out for my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
But like, it was such a special trip because of all the planning that went into it, quite honestly, that ensured that my mom was going to have a good stay, even though she's not as mobile or as active as she used to be. And so really for me, like the first on the list, like for where to take mom is Florence and Rome.
Right. It's so I actually love that, and you just sort of threw it in, but that you had the wheelchair there too, because I've had a couple friends who've had parents travel recently, and that sort of seems to be the thing, where even if a parent sort of pushes back and doesn't want it, it's like, let them be there with the wheelchair and just take you. Because the thing is, all of this exists now, where these parents can travel and be taken care of, and they don't have to worry. And you almost want to be like, Mom and Dad, don't overthink it. Just please use everything that's available to you.
And nowadays, when you arrive at an airport, you're walking like 2 miles.
Yeah, which is so, and that's the thing too, where it's like, listen, we know you can do it, but walk through the streets of Italy, walk through Rome and Florence. Don't waste your steps at the airport, parents.
Exactly.
Right, get in the wheelchair and just go and let somebody.
Conserve your energy.
Yes.
And it's like VIP. So even if you don't pay for VIP service, I just did, but even if you don't, you are whisked through parts of the airport that like dignitaries are brought to.
Right.
You're in different security lines. Like, it is just well worth it, especially in Rome.
No, I like that. I think more people need to do that, and especially with parents. I think parents need to be like, don't put your ego aside, Mom and Dad, and just accept the treatment and do the travel.
Exactly. Put your energy where it needs to go.
Yes, take the steps where you need to. And now, where else do you think is a good place to take Mom?
For me, it's a very personal place because my family is Filipino by heritage.
Right.
And my mom has not been back to the Philippines in over 50 years.
Wow.
And I mean, it's actually been quite some time since my mom has ever been back. She only went back once because she had some affairs to settle.
Sure.
But at that point, like she left the Philippines essentially over 60 years ago and never went back. Like effectively never went back.
Right.
And my mom said to me, I went to the Philippines for my 100th country.
Okay.
And I didn't tell my parents.
Right, and you did it because what a special for your 100th country. That's such a special. That's so personal to you as well.
Yeah, and I really wanted to see where my parents were from, and I will say that it made my relationship so much better with my family when I was able to have better empathy for how they grew up.
Yes.
And where they came from, and maybe like why they thought things that they did.
Right.
And so it actually made my relationship better with my family when I did that. But when I went, I didn't tell my mom until like moms have a sixth sense. By the way.
Yes.
My mom just had a feeling that I was going to go to the Philippines, even though they forbade me to go. Like as a 40-year-old, they told me I couldn't go. But whatever, you know, that's a whole other story.
Right.
But she calls me up. I've been avoiding her because I didn't want to tell her where I was going, and I was not going to lie to my mom.
Right, and she would hear it in your voice, I bet too. She would know.
Yeah,
she would know. Moms know.
You're too old to lie to your mom at 40 years old. Like, my gosh, like, you know, I'm a grown up. But so I did the grown up thing, and I avoided her. And I avoided her calls until like one day I just couldn't avoid. So I get on the phone with her and I'm ready to get off very quickly. And out of nowhere, the question is, so where are you going next? And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to Asia. She's like, are you going to the Philippines?
Oh boy, she knew.
She knew. Yeah, moms know.
know.
And so I was like, I'm not going to lie to my mom. And so I was like, yes. And then there was silence, stunned silence, because she had not been in so long. And so I like get off, I do my own like merry way. My parents are freaking out that I'm going to the Philippines. I think I'm going to get kidnapped. I went to Amanpulo in the Philippines.
Okay.
I went to a private island.
Right.
Like that was like the most exclusive place to go in Asia. But when I came back, my mom said to me, she said, wow, like, you know, I would love to go back to the Philippines one day, which is the first time she'd ever said that to me. If I could do a big time trip like you, but I could never do a big time trip like you. And I thought to myself, if there's one thing I do for my mom at some point in her life, it's going to be to take her on the trip that I just went on.
Right.
I stayed at the Peninsula in Manila. I stayed at Amanpulo, like I said, which was like the most beautiful place. My mom has never been to the beaches in the Philippines.
Oh, wow.
Because they didn't have enough money.
Sure, it's a different
generation. They didn't have enough money to get on a private plane and go to the Palawan Islands and stay at a hotel room that's a couple $1,000s a night. That was just not ever in the budget or ever in the dream. So I think that one day that will be where I take my mom.
Yes. It's funny. I love everything about what you just said. I love that your mom is ready to go back. So my dad was born in Italy. In like
I didn't know that.
my dad was
I
born
didn't
in
know that.
Reggio Calabria, like so the tip of the boot where you can see Sicily. And my dad came over. He was 8, but my nonna did the same thing where she did not want to go back. And
Italy?
She didn't want to go back to Italy, but it's exactly like what you're talking about, which is it's so wild. Nobody's leaving these countries under circumstances where life is great and it's a resort place to them. You know, they leave because it's like we need a shot at a better life. So it wasn't until much later in my nonna's life that then she wanted to go back, and at this time she wasn't really mobile. It would have been very difficult, and she never wound up going back. She didn't go back. So I'm so glad that your mom is saying yes, I want to do this, because you want to do it while they can. Because the thing was, by the time my nonna said it, we're like, she really couldn't get around. And it's like, Italy is not a handicap accessible place. Like, especially where they are. It's like, there's certain places where it's like, no, it's not handicap accessible. But we did the same thing where we went back to where my dad is from. And exactly what you just said, Christine, you hear these stories and you're like, okay. And then you go back and you're like, oh, you mean you were poor. Do you know what I mean? You don't understand where they come from. And I think sometimes it makes it hard for them to travel sometimes the way we like to travel because it's so foreign. Sort of like your mom said, I can't take the big trip. But it's like, no, but you can. But I think they're still in that other mentality where it's so hard sometimes to like get themselves to that place. But it is unbelievable to see. It's a wild connection. And it's where my dad is from. It's the house is like in shambles, which is, it's still there. But like the view is gorgeous. And it's such a like, it's so wild to think like this is what goes on. But it's so funny. Same thing. Like it's like all resorts over there. And they're not that far from the White Lotus Hotel. If you cross over to Taormina. But like they had to leave that life because it was so different back when they left in the 50s. That's so funny.
You know, this is so cool that because of our moms, we're learning these things about each other.
Yes.
That I don't think I ever would have known.
Right. It wouldn't have come up. Yeah.
You and your dad and your nonna.
Right. Yeah, no, it's wild. But I feel the same, exactly what you're saying too. It's like we took my parents to Portugal. And it's just, and that's another place, just because while we're saying it's easy, because I also feel like it's a place where everyone kind of speaks English, and you're sort of like, if at some point we're separated or you need to get somewhere, you can do it. And I think for parents, there's such a safety in that, like, oh, I don't need to speak the language. It's going to be okay. There's always somebody at the hotel. We're always like, talk to the concierge about anything. Like where you need to go, how you need to get there. Like there's really something in that safety and it being easy, which I think that's why when you said that, I was like, that's struck such a chord.
You know, I never even thought about Portugal for my mom, but that would be a great place because, like, in addition to Filipino heritage, because they were under the rule of the Spaniards for so long, like Spain and Portugal might be a kind of cool trip to take too.
No, I agree.
What was that like? So, like, your parents are Italian.
Yes. No, and my whole thing was like everything is going to be familiar enough to you. You know, like the cuisine in Portugal, I don't want to say it never feels foreign. You're like, oh, I'm familiar with this, but just maybe not prepared this way. So like there's a safety in that of like, oh my God, like then everything is just delicious. Like everything they just loved. It was like so fresh and so good. And I said, you're going to have a potato. You've had potatoes like a million times before, but for some reason it's just going to taste better here. Like even fries, like whatever they're doing in Portugal, it's like, yeah, you have fries all the time, but like it's going to seem like an exceptional fry.
Oh, that makes sense though, because like the potatoes are grown in the soil of Portugal, and so it's like and the water, and there's so many things that impact what something tastes like. That's going to be different from here.
So they love that, and then my brother-in-law was born in Portugal, so we stayed at his parents' house with my parents, and that was almost my dad's favorite part of the trip. Because now it was almost like going to Italy and staying with cousins, but then he was able to have that experience in Portugal. So he like loved staying at their house, and they had chickens in the back, and then sometimes we'd have chickens for dinner if you can do the math.
Oh my God!
So it's very. But like, what a wild, it was a real authentic experience of like, this is how we live our life, and come stay at our house, and you can experience that. And that was my dad's favorite part of the trip. And then they both loved it, like both my parents.
Okay, wait. First off, you just said that your father's favorite part of the trip was hanging out with his in-laws.
Well, not his. So it was really like my in-laws. Okay, so here's what you need to know. Once you're in my family, you're sort of in. So my parents were staying at my brother-in-law's parents' house.
Okay.
So we've done a real crossover. So John, my husband,
my gosh,
his sister's husband is Portuguese, and his parents still have a house there. And we took my parents there.
Okay, that's amazing.
Right, which was wild.
This is like a major crossover that you have going here.
Yes. So that's what we did, which was wild, and they loved it.
Your parents sound cool. I have not yet met the Chico
No,
clan.
they're very fun. Yeah, my parents are. It's so funny. I just had dinner. This is so off the cuff, but I just had dinner with friends I hadn't seen in a while, and everybody was talking about how great my parents are, and I was like, oh yeah, they're really fun. And then all my friends were like, but Regina, think about it. You haven't met my parents. Like 3 friends said to me, you haven't met our parents, and we've all hung out with your parents several times. And I was like, oh, I see what you're saying. They're like, no, your parents are fun. I'm like, yeah. They're like, no, but they're fun enough that like we hang out with them, and you don't know any of our parents. And I was like, oh, that they are fun. They are fun. My parents are fun.
The apple does not fall far from the tree.
Thank you.
The first time I thought I wanted to meet your family was over Christmas. You put the stuff up on your Instagram.
Oh, yes.
With like what it looks like to eat the 7 fishes.
Oh, right. You may have seen the seafood tower. We literally
at the house.
Stood my niece up. Like she just turned 2, and she was the same height as the seafood tower. And then we were teaching her everything on the seafood tower. It's right. I think it was like, these are the lessons that I'm going to teach you.
This is how Regina's parents roll. They have like seafood towers. They have big lobster tails.
Yeah, we did. We were doing that's so funny. You should actually.
We'll do
a live episode this Christmas. Christmas Eve, the off the cuff episode.
Oh my gosh. Seriously, like, there's something really sentimental, I think, around this time of the year when we think about our moms.
No, it's very true. It's very true. And it's like, we are grateful. We know the lessons they sort of like passed along. And I feel like maybe even subconsciously, the 2 of us knew what they didn't have. And then we like, we sought certain things out. Because like they don't have that. There's certain things like we do and we love. And they gave us maybe the opportunity and a little bit of the push, but they don't even, I feel like there's a lot I do that my mom wouldn't do for herself. And I feel like you probably feel the same way.
Absolutely. And that is when you bring mom on a trip.
Yes.
For Mother's Day.
Yes. I love this so much.
I have a really close friend. Her name's Uba Hassan. You guys may know her as a Real Housewife of New York.
You may know her.
You may know her. But she is actually one of the reasons why my mom and I have the relationship that we do today. Because Uba said to me, she said to me one day, she was like, I'm actually really worried about you. I just want you to have a great relationship with your mom. It doesn't matter, because I had not gone to the Philippines yet at that point to see where my mom grew up. And like you said, we have empathy and seeing where people grow up. But Uba said to me, she's part of the Muslim religion. And she said, the way to heaven is through your mother's feet. But what that means really is that you have to, you go through your mother's body in order to be able to have peace in your life, at the very end, when you move on to a different afterlife, essentially, heaven. And it always just really made me think about how the relationships with moms are so important, because that's what Uba's lesson was to me.
Right.
So she's on the Real Housewives of New York.
Right.
You see her having a lot of fun, but she gives you these lessons.
Right, which is
about
so true.
Relationships, and she really made me start thinking differently about how important the relationship is to our mom.
Right.
With our moms. And I think that taking a trip with your mom.
Yeah, that's a great thing to do.
That is something that if you are privileged enough in your life to be able to do it, then I can tell you from personal experience, it's not something I've ever regretted.
Right. No, and it's true, because when you have a trip, you get that downtime that you don't get when it's just a visit. You have enough time together that you get that downtime to have those real conversations. No, it's so important. And I love that she gave you this advice, and then she said that's how you get to heaven. And I don't know, if you're not watching this episode, you have no idea that we're both wearing white, and we're on a white couch, and somehow it feels like we actually just went to heaven. So I feel like that might be a great way to end this episode.
It all comes full circle.
It all comes full circle. So by all means, if you can, please take trips with your mom. You can see we highly recommend it. I love that advice, but it's so insightful. You learn about yourself and you learn about your mom, and it's amazing. And then maybe you go to heaven like us right now.
This is what heaven looks like.
This is what heaven looks like. Oh my goodness, I love it so much. Well, this is so great. I hope this encourages everybody to take a trip with a mom, and we'll just take more trips with our moms.
I hope so too. And to all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
You deserve more than a day.
Yes, that's true. Oh, all right. Well, we'll see you all next time.
Off the cuff.